Welcome to your conscious use of language section here. And this section is called in NLP the meta model. And this is a fantastic tool for you to be able to use language, the least amount of words possible, to get the most amount of information from your staff in various situations. Now, this is almost like a digging tool. And what it does is, when your staff have got issues, problems, or they're unaware of their own responsibility in a certain situation, your conscious use of this language will enable you to dig down to various truths, various responsibilities that your staff have got that they may not even be aware of themselves. So it is very powerful, and you do use it with rapport. We'll show you exactly how to use this with rapport on the training itself. Yet for now, what I'd like you to do is just get familiar with the patterns that you're going to hear, and perhaps look at some examples that you may use this and the applications you may use this for yourself. And at the beginning, it is a little bit like learning it parrot fashion. So you just grab the page, listen to these MP3s, and keep revising and looking at these various different language patterns. And then when we come to do the training, we'll show you how to apply this in your particular context and for the people that you're going to be working with. This MP3 recording is about 15 minutes long.
Now, the meta model was arrived at by the originators of NLP going out and modeling Virginia Satir, and she would simply ask questions. Because of the intention and obviously the consciousness of what she was doing with her languaging and the actual questions themselves, what people would discover is that they would come down inside the truth or a reality that they hadn't seen before because it had been buried so deep under the normal kind of language patterns that arrive in your head. So the theory is this: underneath the habitual languaging that you're normally doing in your head every day, there is a truth, and there are truths of your reality. And when you can dig down and find these truths, and the problem is exposed for the reality that it is, it often just disappears. Or at the very least, it loosens itself up. So how might this be useful for you? Well, for instance, for yourself, it's a great tool. In problem solving, troubleshooting in business, uncovering roots of people's problems when you're doing one-to-one with people. But also it's a very good business tool as well. If you're a manager or you're on the upline somewhere in a networking group, and you need to find out what's really happening on your downline or with the people that work with you, then asking specific questions that we're going to show you here, which dig down directly vertically into the truth of particular problems. Now, there are some nuances here about how you have to use the meta model, but I start off by saying you've got to use it carefully because it's a very powerful tool. And being it's a powerful tool and quite intrusive, people will feel that it's powerful and intrusive unless there's enough kind of comfort, security, trust there. They won't go with you. So you do have to have one of the cornerstones of NLP, which is your rapport, already set up with the people, so that they will allow you to get inside and do this questioning and allow their neurology to be moved by it at the same time. Now, here's the beauty. When they find the truth of it, it's often about them and not about anybody else. There'll be a responsible statement deep down inside them that they know they're causing this problem in some way or other, and they're responsible, and there'll be a language pattern down there which says it all. The fact is, they just haven't uncovered that language pattern successfully just yet, and all they're used to is the story of the problem whirring around and round and round in their own head. Now, you've probably noticed that yourself sometimes when you've had a problem, or you might have split up with your lover, or there's a relationship in your business that's not going well, or your money or something. All that happens in your head is the same stories go round and round and round. You go and tell 10 people and they all agree with you or they don't agree with you, but it doesn't change the story and it doesn't change the feeling inside. What this model does, it allows you those gates of perception to open so you can begin to see and peer into the reality of how you've held the problem inside.
At this point, if you can stop the recording or pause the recording and get the page there that I've sent you over, probably by email, and just have a look at that page, and the patterns that we're going to talk about now coming up will be on that page. Now, they may not make complete sense straight away, but just go with it, look at the patterns and look at the challenges and just get familiar with this type of questioning and patterns, and then we'll work with them when you're on the training and it'll all make sense then. So just go through the rest of this recording whilst you're looking at that.
So let's start with mind reading. Somebody says to somebody else, "You don't like me." Well, that's a mind read, isn't it? So what would be the response to that? Well, that would be, well, how do you know I don't like you? And what that will do is it recovers the source of the information. Well, you looked at me funny on Tuesday afternoon in 1973. Well, now you know what they're referring to, and perhaps you can clear it up. So mind reading, you don't like me, or Susan doesn't like me. Well, how do you know Susan doesn't like you? Number 2, lost performative. It's bad to be inconsistent. Well, where's the performer of that? Who's saying that? So the response is, well, who says it's bad? According to whom? How do you know it's bad? It's bad to be inconsistent. Well, how do you know? Who says? Which will get you, gathers evidence, recovers the source of the belief, and hopefully recovers the performer of that particular statement. Who says? Number 3, cause and effect. You make me sad. Now, here's a counter question to this. Now, it's quite a long one, and there's 2 ways you can answer it. One is, how does what I'm doing cause you to choose to feel sad? And the other one could be, well, how? You could say how specifically, but how is quite good. And what that does is, it recovers the choice. Remembering they made themselves feel sad, nobody can make anybody feel anything. So they've done a cause and effect violation there. So with the cause and effect, that will get your client back to their own responsibility, and it's normally going to be an I statement. Like, oh, I feel I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm the one who didn't do the communication. Oh, I'm the one that's making me feel sad. It's nothing to do with you. They'll normally come up with that. That'll be more truthful than the blame that they're putting on somebody else. Number 4, complex equivalence. Now remembering that complex equivalence, this means this. Red light means stop. And the pattern we've got here is, she's always yelling at me, she doesn't like me. The response you're going to give is, how does her yelling mean that she doesn't like you? Have you ever yelled at somebody you liked? Well, of course you have. So how does yelling mean this? How does that mean that? In other words, she's saying, this means this. You're saying, does it? Show me. How does it mean that? Number 5, presuppositions. If my husband knew how much I suffered, he wouldn't do that. Now, there are 3 presuppositions in this sentence. One is that the person suffers, I suffer. 2, my husband acts in some way. And 3, my husband doesn't know I suffer. So there's 3 questions you can ask here. 1, how do you choose to suffer? 2, how is he acting or reacting? And 3, how do you know he doesn't know you suffer? So this is going to get more information. Now, remembering that there may be another meta-model pattern that comes up after you ask this question. So you're still going to be on page 44. You're still going to be using meta-model to dig and dig and dig. Okay, generalizations. In the category of generalizations, number 6, universal quantifiers. So these are such as all, every, never, everyone, no one, etc. And here's one that you've probably heard quite a few times in your life. Example, she never listens to me. Now, what are you going to challenge in that sentence, do you think? If it's a universal quantifier, all, every, no one. Okay, so you're going to challenge the never. So you can just say that. You can just say, well, never listens to you. And you can also say, what would happen if she did? So she never listens to you. What would happen if she did? Now, that recovers the counterexamples, effects, and outcomes. So if you find out what would happen if she did listen, you might find out what they really want. You might find out they'll find it isn't true. It isn't even true that she never listens. 7. Modal operators. Now we've got modal operators of necessity and modal operators of possibility. Modal operators of necessity as in should, shouldn't, must have to, need to, is necessary. And here's one example of necessity. And you've probably heard this one too. I have to take care of her. Okay, so which part are you going to challenge here? Yep, the bit that's pushing, which is have to. So to get a counterexample, to find out what's behind this have to, you could say something like, in response, what would happen if you did, or what would happen if you didn't? Or you could even say, or, I have to take care of her, or. So this recovers the effects and the outcomes. You know, what would happen if you didn't take care of her? Oh, well, this would die, and then find the next meta model for whatever she comes up with. And let's have a look at part B of this, which is the modal operators of possibility, as in can, can't, will, won't, may, may not, possible, impossible. And here's one I've heard many times. I can't tell him the truth. I can't tell him the truth. Well, the modal operator here is can't, obviously. So you're going to challenge that by, well, what prevents you? What's stopping you? And also, what would happen if you did? Gives the counterexample, and they should come up with a very clean version and clear version of what is that thing that's stopping them. Okay, now we go to the category deletions. Number 8 here, normalizations. And normalizations, just to remind you, process words which have been frozen in time, making them look like nouns. An example here is, there is no communication here. Obviously, communication is the thing that we're looking at as a normalization, and we want to really find out what's in their world about this word. So you're going to ask, who is not communicating to whom? Because you need the information, obviously. And here's another one which is very graceful. How would you like to communicate? Or even how would you like them to communicate? So then this turns it back into a process, recovers the deletion and the referential index about who is doing what to whom. Number 9, unspecified verbs. Example, he rejected me. So to get information, you'll simply ask, how specifically, which specifies the verb. He rejected me. How specifically? We want to know what happened. Now, some people, if they said that to someone else, they just put their arm around them and go, there, it'll be all right. You know, men are just like that. But no, what we want is information, uncovered. Number 10, simple deletions. A, I am uncomfortable. About what? Whom? B, they don't listen to me. Who specifically doesn't listen to you? C, she's a better person. Well, better than what? Better at what? Compared to what? Or whom? Recovering the comparative deletion. Now remember your Columbo effect here. Excuse me, ma'am. I have a question to you. You said she's a better person, and I was just wondering, better compared to whom is that, or better what? Soften the question before you fire it in there. Don't become a meta monster like some people, which is very easy. And remembering that the purpose of the meta model is to get the pattern up so you can see it and then deal with it. The purpose of the meta model isn't always to blow the problem out or to solve problems. The whole purpose of the meta model is to uncover the truth of their situation. And the more skilled you get, the more graceful you get, the more your client opens up quickly and quickly comes to the deepest truth that they're holding inside their neurology. And when they do that, often it loosens it right up, and sometimes it just does disappear.